1997, Netflix was founded by yourself and Reed Hastings. From that day onwards, did you know at the moment that Netflix was going to ever become what it went on to be? What were you thinking it was going to be?
I am completely astounded and amazed at the direction that Netflix has gone. Never in a million years could I have dreamed of the company that exists now being the same one that we were thinking about in August of 1997. It's astounding to me what's happened. And it's the nature of entrepreneurship. You can't predict where these things are going to go. That wasn't the point, though. It wasn't like Reed and I were in the car going, okay, when do we enter the streaming war? And how do we deal with China? No, this was a very, very simple, straightforward problem. Video rental in the United States is $8 billion a year. It's very unpleasant that the company who has the lion's share of that market is doing things which customers hate. There has to be a Blockbuster. There has to be a better way. That's where it starts from. That's the problem you're trying to solve. And trying to solve the problem is this dual thing, which is how do you do something that a customer might want, solve the problem for the customer, but also how do you make a business out of that? And that's all consuming. I remember we had a company meeting early on, maybe we were 2 or 3 months in. And I remember getting up in front of the company and laying out what I thought was going to be this big, hairy, audacious goal for us. Someday, we're going to be one of the top 10 largest video chains in the United States, which in retrospect was a ridiculously trivial. But from where we stood then, it may as well have been saying we're going to ride our bicycles up Mount Everest. What hubris. Because even the 10th largest chain was many, many, many millions of dollars a year bigger than we were at the time. Mm-hmm. But something to aim for, and we actually passed that one way faster than we thought. And then you set your goal, eventually we're going to be as big as Blockbuster. In other words, if you were to set your goals to be what Netflix is now, I would be locked up. I would have been this most ridiculous flight of fancy, hallucination you can imagine.
They would have thought you had gone psychotic or something if you'd ever done a presentation saying Netflix would be as big as it is now. For people that don't know, because the world has moved on so much, and there's a generation of people that are listening to this conversation right now that probably don't even know what a VCR and a cassette player is. But you launched the business at a time when Blockbuster was the big incumbent, and Blockbuster was a store where you went to a physical location, you rented a cassette VCR, what do they call it?
A VCR.
VHS tape. You took it home and then you brought it back the next day. And your real innovation was that you were going to send these DVDs to people in the post on a rental basis. That was the crux of the business, right?
That was the crux of the business. And in fact, when we originally started, there was not a lot of business model innovation there either. There was due dates and there was late fees. The innovation was, it was one centralized store on the internet that served the entire country so that we could have every single movie that was available on DVD. We had perfect inventory. And unlike a video rental store where you can picture it being like a supermarket with rows of shelves, each movie could be placed in one place. You could either put it in the mystery aisle or in the Alfred Hitchcock aisle or in the new release. You had to pick where it was. Whereas on the internet, you could have that same movie listed in 30 different places based on finding movies. We thought finding movies would be easier too. We had a bunch of things we thought would allow us to take on this incumbent, this huge, huge, huge company. But yes, it was very, very focused. There was no streaming. If you wanted a movie, we mailed it to you. We mailed it to you on a little plastic disc.
It's funny because in hindsight, when I think about a lot of these big breakthrough ideas that ended up changing their industry, you learn in hindsight that there was some big macro factors that caused the timing to be right. And I think about in the case of your business, Netflix, there's a bunch of big macro things that you've already described, things like DVDs, the internet. Is there any other sort of big macro factors that made the timing right for Netflix?
Those were the two big ones.
Right.
Is that the internet was certainly the big one, was that all of a sudden there was this way to have a single store which served the entire country. Before, for a bricks and mortar, as we call it, business, you want to serve the entire country, you've got to build 9,000 different stores. And Blockbuster did just that. They had 9,000 different stores. And then you have to staff those stores. And they had 60,000 employees. And we served the entire country with one inventory and with a group of 12 to 15 people. So that was certainly one big shift. The DVD was a bet, which was at the time, DVD was just getting started. And if the DVD had not worked, if it had not reached a full household penetration, this whole thing never would have worked.
How many people were watching DVDs at the time when you launched Netflix?
There was fewer than 250,000 DVD players sold. That was the total addressable market, was 250,000 DVD players.
So what is that, like 1% of America or something?
Yeah, there's 130 million households in the United States. So, and of those 130 million households, 129.9 of them had the ability to watch a VHS movie. Mm-hmm. So this was a real bet that they'd eventually be willing to buy this whole new machine to play a whole different type of movie. But it was tiny. It created all kinds of interesting marketing challenges of how do you launch a company when there's so few eligible customers.